Making your own tackle is much more possible than you may think, and there are a ton of different options at your disposal. The ability to customize your own baits is endless. I've been making lures for years now and caught tons of fish on baits I've made myself. So if you've ever wondered what it takes to make jigs, then you're in the right place. So the first thing that we're going to need in order to start making our jigs is something to melt our lead down with. I use the Elite Production Pot 4. Another option that I've used in the past a long time ago was the Hot Pot 2. Both of them are going to do the job. I like to use the Elite Lead Pot because it puts more lead into my pot, and I have a lever that allows me to have that lead come out of the spout. With the Hot Pot 2, you're actually going to use it similar to a ladle, and you're going to be pouring that lead from the hot pot into your mold. The Elite Production Pot is going to cost you around $100, and then the Hot Pot 2 is going to cost you around $70. So there's a price difference, and it's going to boil down to personal preference and price point. So now that we have a way to melt down our lead, we need a mold to put that lead into. That mold is going to give you the shape of the specific jig that you're using, whether it's a football jig, an Arky jig, a ball head jig. It doesn't really matter what type of lure or what type of bait you're making. You need that mold in order to give the shape to the lead that you're melting down. My ultimate recommendation for anybody getting started off with making their own tackle is to get something that you already have confidence in. If that's a football head, get a football head jig mold. If it's an Arky head jig, get an Arky head jig mold. If you use a lot of ball heads already, then get a ball head jig mold. Something you already have confidence in and you know works, so that way you get confidence in producing a bait that you know already works, instead of trying to go out there and get something a little bit more custom or a little bit more outlandish or a little bit different than what you've been using, and you're already not super confident in it, and you're starting to make your own stuff. You need to get something that you already have confidence in, so that way you can mimic some of the different things that you've been using and get confidence in making your own tackle, and then branch out a little bit more. And I think you'll be more successful, and I think it'll be a little bit more fun as well. A few of my favorite molds is the Weedless football jig with holder mold, the Arky jig mold, and then also the swing head football jig mold. I use those all a ton. I've used the football jig mold at the desert lakes and here at home a lot. I use the Arky jig mold on the Mississippi River a ton, and I use that one also around grass and wood. And then that swing head football jig is great all over the country. So one thing to keep in mind is the product list that I have down in the description of today's video. It's going to list out all the stuff that I'm talking about in today's video, and it's also going to include my Do It Molds affiliate link. That affiliate link lets Do It Molds know that I sent you when you click on it and go to their website. So if you're going to go to the website after watching this video or anytime in the future, use that link, save that link, and click on it before you go to the website, so that way they know that I sent you. So one thing that you're also going to want to have is powder paint. Powder paint is what paints the head of your jig. I like to keep my powder paints pretty simple. I use a Pro-Tec brown, Pro-Tec green pumpkin, and they have a ton of different options available as well. They have different colors of green, different colors with flake in them, different colors with pearl in them. They have clears, they have flake colors, they have all kinds of different options to really help you customize your jigs. Ultimately, the specific color powder paint that you end up choosing is personal preference. But something that you can also do with your powder paints is mix and match them. If you get a bunch of different colors, you can mix them and match them to create your own custom color. That's something I do with brown in particular. The brown that comes standard is a little bit of a different tone than what I'm going for. So I add some black into that brown and really darkens it up, and it gives me exactly what I'm looking for. So if you mix and match, you can come up with something specifically yours that's different than everybody else has out. So there's a couple of accessories that you're going to want to have when it comes to powder painting. The first one's going to be a heat gun. I use a heat gun in order to heat up the head of my jig, so that way when I take that jig and I dip it and swirl it into that powder paint, it then melts that powder onto the head of that jig. Then you're going to want to have a toaster oven. I like to use a toaster oven that's dedicated to my tackle making. I have it out in the garage, and that's where it stays. I don't use it for food or anything like that. And then you're going to put those jigs into that toaster oven, and then you're going to bake them, so that way it cures that powder paint onto the head of that jig. It makes that paint much more durable. If you skip this step, you're not going to be happy with the product you're getting out of the powder paint. But once you bake them, it's much more durable, and you're going to be much more happy. Now, typically what I do is I bake my jigs at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. Guys, for some reason, sunglasses are an overlooked part of fishing. Sunglasses are going to help ease the strain on your eye on long days on the water. It's going to help you see into the water. It's going to help you see fish, see cover, and see structure, which is going to help you catch more fish. The sunglasses that I'm wearing on and off the water are Waterland Fishing Optics. These are the hybrid frames. These are my favorite frames to wear off the water. I have slanch frames, which are great for both on and off the water. Then they have different frame styles dedicated to bed fishing, or the ashore frames are really good for bed fishing and just general days out on the water. Head over to the Waterland fishing optics website. It's waterlandco.com, and check out all the different products that they have. They got sunglasses, apparel, and different accessories. Again, it's waterlandco.com. Make sure to use my discount code LUNA15 so it saves you 15% off. Again, that's waterlandco.com. Use discount code LUNA15. So something else when it comes to jig making is you got to get those hooks. The hooks are a lot of times the most expensive part of making the actual bait. Everything's relatively inexpensive, but when it comes to hooks, hooks are generally the most expensive thing that goes into your jig, and for good reason. It's what's connecting you to getting that bite to landing that fish. You want super sharp quality hooks in your jig so that way you can land as many fish as possible when you're getting those bites. When picking the specific hook, you want to make sure, one, it's a quality hook, but you also need to make sure that it matches up with what the mold calls for. Some jigs can have 90-degree eyes, some jigs can have 60-degree, and some can have 30. That's the main thing you want to pay attention to. Each jig is built around a certain hook, and most of the time that's interchangeable with brand. So if it calls for an Eagle Claw or it calls for a Victory and you want to go with a different brand hook, you can. Just pay attention to what degree that hook eye is, and most of the time it's going to fit. And in most molds you can go up one size from what it calls for and down one size from what it calls for, so that way you can manipulate what size hook is in there. I've been using Victory hooks this past year and I've been very, very happy with them. They're super sharp hooks. They make all kinds of different hooks specific for tackle making. They also have treble hooks to add on to your custom baits, or if you just need to replace some trebles that you've had for a while. Victory hooks are sharp and they're very inexpensive compared to some other ones out on the market. They have them over at the Do It Molds website. I'll leave a link in the description to the Do It Molds website. It's my affiliate link. Just make sure to check them out. I think you'll be very happy with those Victories. They're going to be a really good bang for your buck. So a unique thing that you're going to need to pay attention to, depending on what mold you get, is if that mold calls for any wire forms. A lot of times those wire forms can replace the eye of a hook, like on the swing head football jig, or it can add in a wire keeper. The WB 400 and the WB 800 wire forms are pretty common hook keepers that a lot of the jigs and a lot of the molds call for. The wire forms are an important part of the jig making process. That's not something that you're going to be able to skip if you don't want to buy those with the mold that calls for it. You might be able to get away with not using a hook keeper or something like that, but for like the swing head football jigs, if you don't buy that wire form, you're not going to be able to use that mold. You're not going to be able to make those swing head football jigs. So no matter if it's a football jig, an Arky jig, a swim jig, a lot of times you're going to need to add a skirt to that jig, so you're going to need to get some skirt material. Most of the time we're either going to be using silicone or round rubber skirt material. Silicone skirt material can come pre-banded, which means the skirt's already made and it's got a rubber collar on there, and all you got to do is slide that skirt onto your jig. Now you can buy silicone skirt tabs, which you can mix and match to create your own custom skirts, and you're going to need a skirt making tool in order to do that. Silicone skirt tabs have tons and tons of different options, so you can mix and match and dial in specific colors to the specific craw or specific bait fish that you're trying to imitate. You can get really, really creative, really, really outlandish colors can be made, really, really natural colors can be made. It's basically, the creativity is endless when it comes to different skirt tabs, different colors, different designs, all kinds of different stuff when it comes to those silicone skirt tabs. So another skirt material is round rubber. Round rubber comes in a longer sheet. Sometimes it comes in a roll, and you're going to cut that to length. So a lot of times they're going to be 5 inches in length as a standard skirt. You can obviously go shorter or longer if you want to. But round rubber just gives it a little bit of a different look for that jig. It's going to act a little bit different in the water when it compares to the silicone. A lot of people really like round rubber in the colder weather, colder water times, but I've seen a lot of people starting to switch over and using the round rubber a lot more often. It used to be a really old school technique, and then silicone kind of took over, and now people use both depending on different situations. Now with round rubber, you don't have as many options at your disposal as you do with silicone. It's very, very basic, a lot of just standard brown, standard green, blue, purple, black. You're not going to have near the number of options that you have with silicone, but sometimes those round rubber jigs can just do really, really well. Now, if you're making a weedless jig, then you're going to need to have some weed guards on hand. Now, weed guards are built into the mold in most situations, and the mold's going to tell you what diameter you're going to get for that particular mold. Most of them are going to be 1/8 inch, but there are some that are different diameter. And if it is a different diameter, then you need to pay attention, so that way you're ordering the right diameter weed guard. The weed guards also come in different stiffnesses. I like to go with the softer one because I'd rather have a softer weed guard and snag a few more of my jigs than have a heavier weed guard and risk not getting good hook penetration because that weed guard stopped my hook from getting in the fish. Weed guards also come in different colors. You can get green pumpkin, clear, black, brown. Those are pretty much the standard weed guard colors. That's pretty much what I stick to. Most of the time I'm using green pumpkin, brown, or black. I do keep some clear ones on hand in case I want to make a shad colored jig or something like that. They also make white colored weed guards. So you just got to get the weed guard that suits your jig best. Some people like to have everything matched. So if you're making a black and blue jig, you're gonna have that black weed guard. Brown and purple jig, you're gonna have a brown. Weed guards also come in different colors. You can get green pumpkin, clear, black, brown. Those are pretty much the standard weed guard colors. That's pretty much what I stick to. Most of the time I'm using green pumpkin, brown, or black. I do keep some clear ones on hand in case I want to make a shad colored jig or something like that. They also make white colored weed guards. So you just got to get the weed guard that suits your jig best. Some people like to have everything matched. So if you're making a black and blue jig, you're gonna have that black weed guard. Brown and purple jig, you're gonna have a brown weed guard. You can mix and match it depending on what you want to do, but I like to keep it simple and kind of make everything match together with my jigs. Guys, don't forget about the Do It Molds affiliate link that is down in the description along with that product list. And if you guys want to learn how to make your own jigs, make sure to click on the video that's on the screen right now, and I'll see you guys in the next video.